El perro es mi corazón. El gato no es bueno. Cilantro es cantante, cilantro es muy famoso. Cilantro él es hombre, caza el cante al diablo.
Welcome to another edition of the Sans Frans podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andrew Soreballs.
I am, and we'll get right into it, the Hamburglar.
You're the Hamburglar.
Yes.
I don't seem to recall visiting you.
So
I visited your home. You're one of your homes in Nova Scotia. It was a very interesting time to stay in your house. Or was that your house, or is that just a place that you?
that's Ronnie's.
That's Ronnie's place. Do you manage them, or how does that situation work?
I'm more on the theft and larceny side of things.
Oh, you're that's like your arm of the business. That's how you bring in the cash.
Right, exactly.
For Ronnie.
So I steal the hamburgers for Ronnie to sell.
I guess you steal them from Ronnie. Like you're kind of his adversary, I suppose.
But it's a supply and demand thing, right?
Like a frenemy sort of thing. Now, do you guys is this the conspiracy? Do you, as the Hamburglar, do you steal the hamburgers to artificially inflate the prices?
Yes, because everybody knows with lack of supply
comes demand.
And
So you're the reason why it takes so long at the McDonald's to get my food.
yes. Now, for those of you who are unaware, I don't know how much we've talked about this on the podcast, but for a time, Andrew stayed at Ronald McDonald House
In Halifax, Nova Scotia, while my son was born prematurely, and my
partner.
ex had happened to be in Halifax or Nova Scotia at the time, and there was an emergency situation. He had to be born there. Born there. So I ended up having to live in the Halifax Ronald McDonald House for a little over a month in the summer, in a pre-war house with no air conditioning.
Now, the important thing to me that I think a lot of people don't know, and I learned myself, you don't just get to eat unlimited cheeseburgers at the Ronald.
It actually could, unless you knew it was what Ronald McDonald was, you would never know that it was in any way associated with McDonald's.
Right. Only
if you knew who Ronald McDonald is. Like if you didn't know that he is the mascot for McDonald's, yeah. That's the only way you would ever know that these two things are associated. It's actually a wonderful charity. They do great things for families in need. It's a very important thing that no one else is doing.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's funny because one of the first projects that I worked on, and still I'm working on, is that Voices of Courage document thing.
Yeah. And
one of the most powerful parts of that was a couple whose young son, who had passed away from neuroblastoma, they just espoused that Ronald McDonald House is that's the charity we give the most to. Like, we stayed there all the time when our son was in the hospital, and it's this important thing, and people often don't know that it's important because it's associated with McDonald's, and it's that exact thing. It's it's a house where you just eat cheeseburgers? And it's funny, don't get me wrong, it is funny, but it also is a very important charity that does lots of good things for people who are going through a really fucking tough time. And as awful as that time was, and as uncomfortable as I was for that month, I don't know where I would have stayed or what I would have done while Drew was in the hospital.
Right, because I don't.
It's like 11.
They don't even have a Four Seasons in Halifax, do they?
No,
Like you would have had to stay at a Super 8 or a travel.
The hotel. The other thing is it was during tourist season, so the hotels were very expensive, and tough to get rooms. It was tough
to get rooms
for Jane to get a room when she came, because she came for the first initial part of that.
Right.
And I was living at Ronald McDonald House. We happened to get a spot. It was just happened. Someone left, and we were in need, and we got that room, and it was for me to stay there for a month was $250, and it's that includes it's not good food, but it includes
some meals
every day. It includes a lunch and a dinner. or lunch every day, and dinner 3 or 4 times a week, I think. And it's like $10, $10 or $11 a night for the room. So like you're never gonna even find a hostel that's that cheap. Not to mention it's blocks away from the hospital, like easily within walking distance.
Right.
So, but I mean, one of the things that lifted my spirits the most in that time was, I'm telling you about like all these weird fucking people that are here, and like, oh, it's this awful situation. You're like, so, did you meet Grimace or the Hamburglar? At first, I'm like what? Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, and you're like, do they just give you free cheeseburgers all the time? Like, is there a McDonald's in the house? As you had like 3 or 4 of those cracks before I clued in. I'm like, oh right, this is the wrong McDonald's house that I'm staying at.
I think it's a McDonald's place.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the questions I know is on a lot of the viewers' minds. You know, we talk a lot about cheeseburgers. We joke about that kind of stuff. But what about like a signature McWrap or something?
No, I mean, now I'm picturing myself saying, yeah, I stayed at the Ronald McDonald house, and in actuality, it was just like a McDonald's play place that I find. I sneak in there and stay in the ball pit after dark.
It's like it's the charity, and there's free meals every day, and like you were
I stay there, and then like after dark, I get up and like I turn the lights on, like make myself.
It's like,
but it's like that would be impossible because McDonald's are like 24-hour.
Right. Yeah. I mean more like. You were like in this complete state of delirium, so like you thought that it was this charity place you were staying at.
But in reality, I was just hiding in the ball pit. Yeah, the ball pit for a month. That would be a tremendous feat to be able to do that without, especially for a man of my size.
To live in the ball pit for a month,
undetected, because there's no way they would even let me be in the ball pit. Period. Let alone stay there for a month.
Live there
for a month.
Build a life for yourself.
For a time.
Right, and I'm not even talking like they don't need to be chicken bacon ones. Like I know even they have the feta, spinach feta.
And there's the Thai chili as well.
Right, the Thai chili McWraps as well. So you heard it here first, folks.
There's no McDonald's food at the Ronald McDonald houses. Not even a warming tray. They don't even bring it over. They don't even bring it over from the McDonald's to
like there's no nuggets, nothing.
No McNuggets, no McDonald's breakfast.
They had no golden arches anywhere.
No golden arches nowhere. Not a one.
Really?
They didn't even give you like little vouchers. It's like, I stay at the Ronald McDonald house. Go to McDonald's and get free whatever.
Like a coffee.
Yeah, nothing.
Coffee they had.
Well, they had coffee for sure, but I mean
was it McCafe?
No, it was just coffee.
What is with that? Why is it such a disconnect?
Because again, I think it's because they don't want something that's about caring for sick kids to be associated with something that is obviously unhealthy.
Yeah, right. Slamming cheeseburgers.
It's like, and I think the other part of it is it's like it's such an important charity that like it needs to be its own thing. Like for sure, it's good PR for McDonald's and it's a good thing for them, but they also like it's not a thing that really needs to be associated anymore. Especially now that Rotten Ronnie isn't their mascot.
Yeah, he's kind of doing his own thing with the Ronald McDonald house.
I guess so. Yeah.
Now, are they everywhere?
I don't know about the States, but in Canada, yeah, like the whole thing is it's for families who's like it's for when children are in the hospital. There's a place for the families to stay. Right. So it's like any major city where there is a children's hospital. Like there's a Ronald McDonald house in Saskatoon.
Right. So it wasn't like a facility; it was a house.
Yes, it was a very large house that had been modified to...
Like it was nicely renovated?
Most of it. Like the kitchen was, yeah. It was actually a really interesting setup because it was like...
Like, did it feel like a house or did it feel like a nursing home? That's what I'm imagining. Like
kind of like a nursing home.
Like whitewashed walls?
No. Like it felt like a house.
Like a dormitory or a house?
Kind of like between like a dormitory...
Like it had flooring, like you know how the Luther dorm floor was?
It had like carpet, yeah.
It had carpet.
Like, carpet and flooring, both. It had vending machines.
Like, was there a living room?
Yeah, with a TV and like nice couches. I never spent any time there.
How many bathrooms? Now, were they individual bathrooms or like communal big bathrooms?
Individual bathrooms, but there was one on each floor. There's like 3 floors. There's like a basement, a main floor, and an upper floor, all with several rooms.
Laundry?
Yeah, laundry in the basement. I think 4 washers, 2 dryers, or something, or 3 washers, 3 dryers.
Coin operated.
No.
Free to use.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think. Like you only had to pay for the dryer. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So, like, you had to go get your own detergent, obviously, if you wanted to use it.
Yes. Yeah. But there was like lots of scraps around for people who like bought it and didn't need to stay there for a month and just like left. Like, what are you gonna do? Take your fucking detergent with you when you go?
Yeah, exactly.
So there's like scraps around and.
Well, industrial kitchen or like a home kitchen?
I was gonna get into it. It's a home kitchen, but it's like a double kitchen that's like mirrored. So, if you think about like a giant U, and like and then a huge island in the middle, and then on each kitchen is the same, but it's just like the mirror version of the other side. So there's 2 stoves, there was 3 fridges, but those are outside of the kitchen, like across from the kitchen, and like with your room, you got like a little drawer thing for the fridge, and you got a cupboard in the kitchen that you could lock.
Right. God, that's so fucking interesting.
Yeah.
And like a nice stove?
Yeah, well, the kitchen was quite nice.
What about like, who does like the cleaning up pots and pans? Are you expected to do that yourself?
You have to clean up after yourself, the initial stuff, but you're not expected to like clean up all the counters and sweep. It's like there are lots of volunteers who do the cleaning and that kind of stuff, like the broad strokes cleaning.
Right. Do dishwashers?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you just had to load the dishwasher, wash your dishes, or load the dishwasher, and like the whole point of staying there is it's supposed to be like feel like home, but be easy for people who are going in and out, going in and out of the house at like weird times because their kid is getting a whatever thing and
Excapectomy.
Yeah, whatever crazy thing.
Tamtipectomy.
Yeah. So, and there's no time limit for you staying. So as long as your kid's in the hospital, you have a spot there.
Right.
If you can get it. They have limited spots, obviously.
Right.
So.
And you can't kick it on Ronnie's couch if the house gets full.
No.
Like, there's not like Ronald McDonald's apartment.
No, I don't think so. I mean, they should.
Or like kick it over. It's like Ronald McDonald's friend Ben.
And I mean, the other thing was that they have in the hospital near the NICU, the NICU, neonatal intensive care unit. They actually have a Ronald McDonald house like lounge area at. Jesus, I'm drawing a blank at what the hospital in Halifax is called. I know it, but it's like an acronym. The major hospital in Halifax. Anyways, I'm sure it's common across the board, but they have like a little room there where it's similar. They have like snacks and food you can get if you're hungry when you're visiting at the hospital, and like a little nice little quiet sitting area to just kind of like sit and wait and that kind of thing that you can have access to if you have a room at the Ronald McDonald house.
Oh, like, did you have a key card to get into it or something? Or just I
think you could probably just go in there. Like, I don't think they're going to turn down a parent in the NICU who's like, I want to come sit here.
Was it full? Like, the lounge area?
Not really. People came and went.
Was anybody at the Ronald McDonald house hot? Were there any hot people?
No.
Not one hottie?
No.
Really?
Not that I remember. I kept entirely to myself that time. Like if I wasn't at the hospital, I was in my room, sleeping basically.
Right. And where do you smoke pot then?
I don't know. I'm sure people found places to smoke pot.
Drink? Were you allowed to have alcohol in the place?
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure no.
Like you couldn't have like a nice like a double old fashioned glass and a few shakes.
No. There was a. What I did whatever, because it was a tumultuous time for many reasons. So after a particularly bad day, there was this pub that I went to that I'd love to take you guys to if we ever go to Halifax, called the Fickle Frog.
Okay.
And just incredible pizza, and like always have a beer special. And I went there and I ordered a pizza. I just like I had nowhere else to go. I'm like realizing I can either go back to fucking Ronald McDonald house or I can just sit here and drown the sorrows. I just sat there for like 4 hours and like ate a pizza and had like 4 or 5 like schooners of beer and just sat there. I go back to the Ronald McDonald house. I'm half
just crushed.
Not crushed. Like I'm tight. because I'd been sitting there for a while. I was sitting there for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
And get there, just take a fucking racehorse piss in the bathroom, and then go and like pass out. And I encountered a couple people, and there's no way they didn't smell the fucking beer on me.
No, exactly.
But I mean, what are they gonna do? Like, I didn't disturb anything. What are they gonna kick me out for being like for going and having some drinks? Like,
I just think like I'd like to see like the door close and you go right to the fucking bottle and you sit with a bottle.
yeah.
Johnny Walker,
No.
and you just keep glass, kill it, glass, kill it, and then you go around.
That always drives me crazy in Mad Men. But it's like Don just sits there, like he drinks half a bottle of whatever. He keeps pouring like a little bit into a glass, and then just it's like just fucking drink from the bottle. Why are you? I suppose maybe to measure how much he's drinking, but that seems kind of like.
And they don't ever sip it. They only just pound what's left in the glass. Like they just fill the bottom of the glass up and then drain it.
Yeah.
You don't sit and sip on it.
Well, they sit there and they hold it for a while, and they drink it, and they sit there and hold the glass for a while, and pour us another one.
Yeah.
I just love it because like their logic is like, we're celebrating, let's drink. It's like, fuck, it's tough times. Give me a drink. I need to settle down. It's like no matter what is happening, it's cause for drinking.
Yeah, it's like, and they drink so much, and they only just drink straight liquor.
Apparently, it's fairly accurate for what that industry was like at the time.
Well, I read a thing recently that the industry still has still maintains some of those more lewd practices.
I imagine at the higher levels,
it's a little more.
Well, I think the appeal of a job like that is that it's not like other jobs, and you can get away with that.
Well, it's a little more high pressure, and they're expecting more out of you, so you get a little bit more leniency.
Yeah. A story we read before we hopped onto this San Francisco podcast was about these new marijuana edible advent calendars.
Yes,
and
really ultimately marijuana's existence in this new regime.
Is this in Colorado?
No, these are in Vancouver. They're totally selling them illegally.
Oh, it's totally illegal. It's not even like potentially not illegal.
It's 100% illegal. She's like, yeah, I know it's illegal, and she did an interview about it.
That's so weird because like I assumed when you because I didn't actually read the story, it was you who had read it.
Yeah.
I assumed that it was a legal market this was happening in.
No.
There's no defense for that, unfortunately. Yeah, marijuana is supposed to be legal by.
No, but this wasn't about how she was getting in trouble.
No, I know but we're in this weird gray area right now where it's like there's all these dispensaries that are like operating as a legal dispensary, totally illegally.
Yeah.
And it's like the federal government is not going to spend a bunch of money, or not even the federal, no government organization is going to spend a bunch of money to crack down on these things that 6 months from now, they're not going to be able to prosecute it.
Yeah.
So it's like, why waste all these law enforcement dollars on a problem that...
Yeah, they've essentially already preemptively decriminalized marijuana.
They have, yeah, because it just doesn't make sense. Like, short of maybe a major... No, but even then, there's no way you would be able to bring a case to court before it becomes...
It'd be pretty tough. Maybe it was tough. Major,
Yeah, maybe.
Like a huge grow-up or something.
Not even, that would even be... That's, because there's lots of cases that would be, under the new laws, it would be, technically not legal, but it's, we're talking about fines and tickets for, opposed to jail time. And then there's cases that I imagine would be, even with the new legislations, would be you are trafficking at a high enough, it's some type of fraud or something like that, or illegal, because you can get it's bootlegging, I suppose. You can go to jail for cigarettes, for selling cigarettes illegally, right?
Single cigarettes.
Well, I'm thinking those people who traffic American tobacco.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I mean, also, there are businesses in the city of Swift Current that sell single cigarettes. And it's that's illegal. You can't open packs of cigarettes and sell them.
Yeah, but I feel that would be a fine, not jail time.
No, yeah, definitely not.
Well, the whole marijuana, it's very interesting because in Canada right now, especially in It's only really in cities where it's already established. So it's pretty much Vancouver and Toronto where this is a thing.
Yeah.
But there are these dispensaries, like medical dispensaries, that are operating this weird gray area, Wild West kind of thing, where it's like, yeah, we know what we're doing isn't really legal, but it's like, what are they going to do? Like, yeah, come try and prosecute us. Like, yes, but it's like, as I just said, it's just going to be a waste of everybody's time and money.
It's happening on too large of a scale. You know, if two people were doing it,
and they're paying their taxes is the other thing.
No,
they're not paying taxes on it.
No.
That was the whole thing with, like, way back when with the Mark Emery thing and him getting extradited to the States, and why, myself included, I was pissed off just politically. Like, this guy was doing something that was legal in Canada,
yeah,
and paying taxes, and the government still got strong-armed into extraditing him.
Is he still serving time in a U.S. prison?
No, he's been out for a while. I think he might be back in jail for something else, maybe related, but
because he was selling weed seeds through the mail.
He was selling seeds through the mail, and technically nothing he did is illegal in Canada. No. Nothing. Not even the sending of them in the mail.
No.
Internationally is not illegal in Canada, but it's illegal for them to receive it. And, like, the big argument is, like, if a Canadian gun owner orders an illegal gun part from the States,
it's on them.
You don't go to fucking Smith and Wesson and arrest them and get them to be get whoever sent whatever department's head oversaw that. You don't authorize or extradite them to Canada.
No.
You fucking lock up the guy who knowingly illegally ordered that part.
Yeah.
So that was his argument, that it was like, this is some shady shit because I did nothing illegal in Canada. Nothing he did was illegal in the country of origin.
No.
And he's not a U.S. citizen, nothing like that. So it was it was a fucked up situation, I think.
The Prince of Pot. Is that what they called him?
Yeah, I think like the whole drug thing gets spun in the negative direction. To me, the bigger issue is, where is Canada for its citizens? Because
I totally agree.
That was a very important stand that I think they could have taken, and they didn't. And I mean, I guess at the time, though views were shifting on marijuana, they still weren't where they are now.
No, certainly
like,
not.
Every poll that's taken now is like well over half the population is legalize.
Yeah, and like this this medical study came out, and they suggested that the legal age be 21, and then they did a poll, and everybody says 18 or 19.
Well, to me, it's like, while I agree, it's probably better. It's like, the thing is, people look at it like, well, it's for both. It's not just for weed. It's like, it would be better for alcohol to be 25 also. Like, it's better for you, and it alters you to drink. Any substance you do that alters your brain, wait till you're fully developed to do it. Would be the best option. But we've already decided that you are, to a certain extent, an adult at the age of
and if you 18, want to wreck your development, that's up to you, and like I did.
Well, the thing is, it's not even wreck. It's just it affects your development, and there are positives and negatives to it. Like, there's lots of studies that suggest that people who drink, it's like, well, it might affect your memory or whatever negatively. It affects your creativity, your social skills, there's like lots of intersocial and interpersonal things that you get from that experience, right? It's not all negative or all positive. There's costs and
it's way better to start drinking right away.
I think I'm firmly of the opinion that, and I know it's legal as well, but because you're on your own property, your parents can provide you with alcohol.
Yes.
I believe in Canada still, and I think that was a very important part of my development growing up, because I know in high school both you and I had that experience drinking. Not like we weren't like fucking popping bottles of rye in elementary school or anything like that, but like, early high school, we both had some experience drinking, and because of that, you learn what your limits are in a safe place. So when you're not in that safe place and you're testing those limits, you have an idea of like, oh, okay, I need to rein things in, and like that's too far, and like you learn your limits in a safe place so that when you're not in that same environment, you can control yourself and take care of yourself. And
yeah, you're not at the
you're not going to the hospital for alcohol poisoning, basically.
No, and you're not at the discretion of some complete fucking strangers.
I think it's especially important, not to play the gender card, but like it's especially important for young women to have that, because
I think so, especially.
Yeah, because obviously they're unfortunately at a higher risk of many things negative happening when they're passed out, drunk, whatever. And if you don't know what it means to, like, if you don't know what your limits are, you just are at a higher risk when you test them in an unsafe environment, right, or potentially unsafe environment. And not to mention all the people who I see who have like the terrible stories of like, I had to go to the hospital because of alcohol poisoning, are people who didn't get off the leash until they were 18, 19 in university. And it's like, I've never really drank before and now I'm going to go fucking buck wild.
Yeah.
And it's like, well,
do a gajillion shooters. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
No,
exactly.
I think, you know, with any kind of like that those social pressures and peer pressure, it's important to know, like, yeah, you let in somewhat, but it's like, I can't cross this line because...
Exactly. I mean, peer pressure is, I think, as much as it's always portrayed as this, like, this hyper negative, like, only negative thing, I think, and largely it is, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying peer pressure is, like, this awesome thing, but
yeah,
I think succumbing to peer pressure and knowing where that line is and not crossing that line, but, like, giving in that little bit is a very important part of development and social interaction. And it's like, peer pressure is often portrayed as like, I started hanging out with this new group of friends, and it's like, hey, do you want some drugs? Do you want to inject some drugs with us? Come on, man, you're not going to be cool unless you inject cocaine with us. And it's like, not that has never happened, but I think that's like
not the status quo.
The most extreme version of peer pressure that ever could possibly exist. And in reality, it's like, what peer pressure is, I would say 90%, 95% of the time is, come on, like, stay for one more beer. Stay for one more drink. You can stay for a little bit longer. Come on, have a couple more drinks with us. Nah, I have a thing early in the morning that I really should go. Come on, pussy, stay and have another drink. Oh, okay, I'll have one more drink or whatever. That is, like, fairly innocuous, and I would say that's most of peer pressure.
The thing that I think is really important to note, and that people who teach their kids
always say no, is nothing is more awkward or off-putting when you get in a situation and you're like, you know, because you get in that, like, that's the exact situation you're describing. You go, nah, guys, I better not, I gotta go home. And somebody who gives into peer pressure sometimes knows how to deal with that situation, so they handle it properly. But the kids who are like, always say no, kids are like, no, I will not do this. I will not do this because my parents, because I do not believe. Yeah. And it's like, okay, you are fucking weird, and nobody in this group is ever going to want to talk to you again. It's true, and it's funny because, like, it's not that, like, I think people who don't drink are, like, bad, or like they're not, like, they're inherently
not as cool,
or, like, socially awkward. It's not that. It's just, I think, like, it just so happens that a lot of, like, how especially, like, Western Canadian society and, like, social scenes are built, it's like alcohol is a part of that big time. And so people who choose not to partake in that oftentimes don't have a tremendous amount of that experience in social scenes, especially once you become an adult. Because once you become an adult, it's even more a central thing. Because when you're a teenager, it's like, yeah, like, parties and, like, and drinking, underage drinking is for sure a big thing. But you can still have a social life and not do that in high school.
Yeah,
fairly easily. But once you get 19 and up, it's like, well, now it's like you have to find a specific group of people who also doesn't like drinking, and
it's like, it's just a red flag for a lot of people. Like, you sit down for a lunch meeting and they order a beer, and you're like, no, I'm good, I'll have water. Like, sure, that's less of a situation, but
No, I know what you mean. It's like if you're, yeah.
It's like, why aren't you drinking? Like, what weird thing is wrong with you? It's not that that's the case necessarily, but that's just the message. That's this.
Well, it's just like, again, like I think people take issue with this. People who don't drink would take issue with this, and I understand that. But I think a big part of it is that it is part of our culture. Like it or not, it is a part of a quintessential part of our culture. And I personally don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, for sure, alcoholism is terrible, and not being able to control yourself when you're drunk is terrible. And like certain people just shouldn't drink because for whatever reason they become like the fucking Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde when they drink, and they're just not
good to be around.
Good to be around. It's like, okay, well maybe you shouldn't get drunk, maybe, or drink or whatever. Like I get that, but when you reject that part of what most people would consider like a uniting aspect of our society, there's kind of like a weird like, like you don't do that, and it's a very like not petty, but almost petty kind of like thing to just write somebody off because you don't. It's like, oh, you don't partake in the same thing, parts of culture that I do. But I think it's less about like you're not like an alcohol user like me. It's more like, like what other weird things are there?
Yeah, what other weird things are about you?
Yeah, and it's a weird parallel to draw, but I think, again, I think it all comes down to if you just decide like I'm never going to drink, you miss out on a lot of social interactions that you would get. And like the benefit to drinking is obviously it lowers your inhibitions, but if you're not getting blackout drunk, like a couple beers doesn't, like you're not drunk, you like for sure legally you would be considered intoxicated, but you're not like, you're just a little bit less inhibited, and it's a reason there's a reason it's such a good social thing. It's a social lubricant. It has you speak in a way and maybe to people that you normally wouldn't, and you make connections and build relationships you might not, and have conversations you might not have. And so anyone who's like alcohol's all bad, it's like, well, no, there are benefits to drinking, and you can't just gloss over those.
No.
Yeah.
And there are things you would say and interactions. A lot of the best business stuff I've done have been over some drinks.
But it's like, but again, like when you say that, it's such an ambiguous term. Like over some drinks is a very, and I know you mean because I've been at some of these things. That's a huge spectrum. That's like having a beer. Oh, that consists of like having a beer or two at lunch to like we're going out. We went to we're at a show filming, and afterwards we're all having a bunch of drinks and talking. And
yeah,
it's the whole spectrum. And yeah, like a lot of stuff wouldn't have happened if we weren't partaking in that social custom.
Right. And and the other thing for me that I think is so, as soon as you start lumping drinking in with like partying and stuff, because there's two totally different worlds.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
Drinking can be
a totally casual thing.
Like so casual, just having a beer. Like for 90% of the world out there, you're not gonna get drunk off a beer.
Or like a glass of scotch.
Yeah.
Like, because like there's like we bug Fran about this all the time, but you and I both have like we both enjoying alcohol, and that doesn't mean like I'm gonna drink an entire bottle of this and get wrecked. It's like, yeah, I'd like a beer with my dinner, or sure, like let's have an after dinner rye. And
I really like a cold beer,
especially on like after like doing some work outside or like a hot summer day with lunch.
It's so good.
So good. For me, it's especially when I go out. I love a nice draft beer with my meal.
I just enjoy the hell out of it. It's not about drinking to get drunk.
Or partying or anything like that. It's just that I enjoy a beer.
Yeah. It's like, it's like, I'll have a pop. It's like, yeah, that's fine. And like, you're enjoying that pop. I'm enjoying this beer. I'm not enjoying it because it's alcohol necessarily also. I'm enjoying it because I like the flavor of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it more than a pop. I would rather have a beer. Like, I'd rather have a pint of Alexander Keith's than a glass of Dr. Pepper with my meal. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, that's exactly it.
So, to you, those of you out here,
I think they often, like, just to kind of wrap your point up in a bow, I think people who don't ever drink often associate, like, they're intertwined. It's like, well, if you're drinking, like, why aren't you, like, partying and getting wasted? It's like, well, because that's not what this is.
No.
They're not intertwined in the way that you think they are. For sure.
And that doesn't mean that we don't go out and get just fucking wrecked. Because that happens too, and it's part of it, and there's lots of people that's not a thing for them, and that's totally fine too.
I think it's like
I also don't love that anymore, but it just happens.
Well, I think a big part of it is, like, when you're a teenager, when you're young, it's like that's just what you're doing because it's like, hey, there's like this is what everyone else is doing, and, like, I want to be part of that. What everyone else is doing. I think there's also this thing where it's like, I'm going to do this at all costs. Like, I don't care what responsibilities I have, or it's just like, throw caution to the wind. And again, I think it's part of, like, it's a tremendous learning experience that you don't get in the same way if you never drank as a younger person, and you don't go through that experience of, like, fuck, I gotta rein this shit in. I've been partying too much.
Right, exactly.
And you don't learn how to course correct in the same way. Because, I mean, like, as an adult, for me, it's like, if we're going to go out and, you know, have a night.
Yeah.
It's like, there's shit that has to happen. I have to make sure that everything, I have to make sure, like, that I have time to, like, my house is clean, that,
you don't have Drew.
Don't have any work, don't have, like, this action isn't going to affect anything else.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is something that I do that doesn't affect any other aspect of my life.
Yeah.
And I think for most people, it's the same thing. Like, they can go and they can partake in this occasionally, and it doesn't negatively impact their life in any way. So, like, to tell them you shouldn't do that, it's like, fuck you. Like, why is that any different from any other thing that's borderline, like, you know, maybe you shouldn't do that. Yeah, we all probably should go to bed at 7 o'clock and eat steamed vegetables and rice and have a run every morning. And, like, there's lots of stuff that everyone should do, but that's not life, and that's not what makes it interesting and fun and worth living.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, I can see how that might be interpreted as drinking is what makes life worth living. That's not what I'm saying, per se.
But it's true.
Per se. Well, it's like, there's that, like, meme online. It's like, people say you can have fun without drinking. You can also run without running shoes.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, but you can also run without running shoes. So, I think that's, in a lot of ways, is an apt analogy. But, yeah, I think to tie it back to the original point of, like, marijuana, I think marijuana has also been a part of culture in the same way that, to a lesser extent, but in the same way that drinking has for a long time. And it just hasn't been as prevalent because you've had to be a criminal to partake in it.
Yeah. There's no two ways about it.
There's no two ways. Like, you had to break the law.
When you partake, you're a criminal.
Well, I mean, you broke the law. I mean, there's a big difference, like, being a criminal. Like, it's technically true, but it's like a very, like,
I'm just saying.
It's true. Like,
you're not a career criminal,
no.
but you're a criminal.
You broke the law.
I've broken the law lots. I've been a criminal.
I think everyone has some stories of that. But
I would love to meet somebody who has never, by the book, broken the law at all.
Not including, like, a traffic infraction.
I would love to see that. Like, if we could find the perfect...
Maybe. I don't think anyone has never... Like, the thing with traffic infractions is you can make them by mistake.
What if you never drove?
Oh. Maybe there's someone. I know. But, no, I think the thing that's interesting with marijuana is we're seeing it's becoming accepted. It's not part of the counterculture anymore.
No, not at all.
It's very much becoming a mainstream thing. And for sure there's going to be this period of adjustment where it's like, maybe we go a little bit too far, but I think it's going to level back out again. And, like, I think overall, it's going to be a really positive thing for the economy. Also, I think there's lots of benefits to... There's benefits, like with alcohol.
It's really going to... I really hope that it
well, it's going to
sucks the air out of organized crime, because a lot of
that's the big
organized crime is funded through marijuana sales.
Because it's the number one consumed illegal drug by leaps by every other drug combined and then multiplied by
many times
factors.
Yeah.
So like once you take the air out of those sales, I mean for sure there'll still be a small black market, like there's still a black market for cigarettes, but most people don't go to the black market for cigarettes. Like
yeah, or black market for alcohol.
yeah, exactly. Like
There's still moonshiners.
It still exists, but it's like
it's so negligible.
It's so negligible, and it's like most people who consume marijuana and want to consume marijuana
don't want to
break the law, and that's essentially where I'm at, because like I think most people have an experience with marijuana when they're younger, and I did, and I enjoyed it, and then it got to the point where it's like this is not worth it anymore. That I'm like it's like a risk that I have to take to enjoy essentially like a feeling. And it's like, why would I risk like all the negative things that could come from possessing marijuana for a feeling? And it's like, this is stupid. And so it's been many years since I've partaken. Years. And one thing that I'm not excited, like I'm not like sitting there counting the days, but like I want to get to a time where it's like it's like my work is done, the day is over, I can smoke a joint, and it's not, no one's going to get their fucking feathers ruffled because it's not illegal, and
you're not shirking responsibilities.
I'm not shirking responsibilities. Like, that's the thing, is like, I think people often assume the worst case scenario. People who don't partake in anything assume the worst case scenario, and they don't understand that you can have a drink, you can have a puff or two, and it's not this thing that you're going to take overboard all the time. And even when you do take it overboard occasionally, you're not doing so in an irresponsible manner.
No, exactly.
So, I mean, and yeah, I think that it's going to be the big thing for me with marijuana, and why it's maybe a little bit different from alcohol in the marketing of it, is with edibles, because edibles
they're a different game.
They're a different game. They don't. It's unless you know, a lot of the time, it is impossible to distinguish them from just like a normal candy or a normal baked good. And there have already been cases of people who have unknowingly consumed a high concentrated edible and have had a terrible time. And we just need to find, there needs to be a clear way to it needs to be very clear packaging. I don't think it needs to be like cigarette, like this bad packaging, but it needs to have like a big label, like this has pot, like
this is a dope cake,
like this is a dope cake. And it's like, it's crazy because like a bunch of the podcasts I listen to, they're in legal states, or they have medical cards in a medical marijuana state in the U.S. And one of the guys, one of my favorite comedians, Joey Diaz, he's a big, like he takes edibles all the time. And one of the things that he does, he has these crazy, he always talks about how he can handle these crazy high volumes of THC. So he has these gummies, they're called Stars of Death. And they come in different, like 50 milligrams, 100 milligrams, like 10, 50, 100, 1,000. And one of the producers of his show, he switched the package. And it was supposed to like 100 milligrams, which is like 100 milligrams is like already a fucking huge dose. But he switched it with 1,000 milligrams. There's like the video of this guy, it's like he's sitting there, and it's like he's like still running the soundboard in this podcast, but he's sitting there, it's like his eyes are closed like this. He's like trying not to freak the fuck out. He's sitting there, his eyes are closed, his eyes are like barely opening. He's like scrunching, like uncomfortably sitting there. He's like obviously so uncomfortable. And then he snaps back out of it. And he's there again, and it's like he's doing that this whole podcast. And I mean, that's different because this is obviously someone who, while he might not be Joey Diaz level of consuming THC, he has an experience.
Like, what is the most fucking THC you can consume?
I mean, you can get, like, the thing is, because of how your body not produce, what word am I looking for, Brad? When you processes, because of how your body processes alcohol, THC when you eat it versus when you smoke it. When your body eats it, it goes through your liver, and when the process of THC being processed through your liver creates a chemical called 5-HTP, which is essentially a mild hallucinogen.
Right.
So, not to mention that you're processing it through your liver, so it's different than just through your lungs and through your bloodstream.
Right.
So the experience is different, and it affects you differently, both the positives and the negatives. So if you eat a really strong edible, you can feel like really like it's like really like heavy, and like it can make you really really anxious, and it can make you feel like kind of nauseous and like super dazed.
Like if I took 1,000 more, I would puke. I'm sure.
I think so. Yeah, I think you'd probably puke and puke and puke. But the thing is, the thing that's on the one hand, it's like, yeah, no one wants to have that experience, and we should prevent that. On the other hand, no one's ever died from THC. Like even like I don't think it would be possible to make an edible so strong that you would die. I don't think it's possible. Like it would have to be so astronomically concentrated that it's like it's not financially feasible.
That's so funny. Yeah, I don't know. I can't speak to the industry as I've never really been involved in it. But I think that it's important. It's important to, look at it not as a consumer, but as the potential benefit for everyone.
I mean,
by decriminalizing it.
Just look at Colorado.
Yeah.
The two biggest points, and like one of them is like several sub points, but the two biggest points about why it's important, especially for America, is number one, first and foremost, jobs. It stimulates the economy. It creates like Colorado. They had to hire fucking money counters because they were making so much fucking money. They had to pay people they were paying people $15 an hour to like run a fucking counting machine, literally.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So like that just goes to show you that like, and this is like the earliest. This is like, and Colorado's getting to the next stage of it where it's not just dispensaries. It's like restaurants that pair marijuana and food, and like you're seeing all these different cultural things that are coming in, like businesses that are piggybacking off of the marijuana industry.
Yeah.
So that's a huge thing, and then B, the studies that have already been done into if people have access to legal marijuana, they use opiates far less. And with the opiate crisis in the States, marijuana can like severely help with reducing the numbers of people who are reaching for and addicted to opiates.
Really? Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Because
it's a very effective painkiller for most things, right? Especially because there's the different ways to consume it, right? There's like you can smoke it for a more mild thing, and then there's like the oil that you can like put on your tongue, the drops. That's very effective for more intense pain. Not to mention you can get there's stuff they develop for seizures and other like severe conditions that it's like mostly CBDs and not at all or very little minimal THC. So you don't really get high on it at all. It's just a medical benefit for the most part.
Now, as much of a joke as it was, remind me again what the plot of Super High Me is. Does he just try and smoke pot all day, every day?
Well, it's Doug Benson. He's like considered. He's like one of the first like very prominent pot comedians. He still is. He has a great. I'm not sure if he still has. He had a great show called Getting Doug with High, and it's anyways very prominent like pot entertainer, pot advocate, regular smoker. But he decides that he's not going to smoke anything for 21 days, do all these tests, and that he's going to smoke all day, every day for 21 days and see what the impact is. And right at the beginning, he's like, this isn't a scientific study, like, this is how it affects one person, and it's just going to be interesting to see. But he also does these interviews with, like, experts and whatever, and basically what he found is that there wasn't, like, he's like, yeah, like, he's like, would I go back to smoking all day, every day? Like, the frequency was like, no, like, I didn't enjoy, like, it was fun for the first, like, maybe week. But then after that, it's like, I didn't want to be smoking pot all day, every day. Like, that just wasn't enjoyable. But it's like, he basically felt more confident in the fact that he's not, like, destroying his fucking life. Like, his lung capacity wasn't affected, his memory actually, like the memory tested it, he did better on it when he was high, and like I don't think that's not a point to like your memory is going to be better
when you're high.
But I think
It wasn't worse.
It wasn't at all what people thought it was going to be. You
Yeah.
know, and I mean again, it's one person, so you can't really extrapolate.
And he
that,
sure didn't
but-
like not being high for 21 days.
That was the other thing. Is like he's like as much as like he didn't. He's like it didn't affect me as much as I thought it was going to. Like I for sure he didn't love it, but it wasn't like this terrible thing. And I mean that's the other thing that I hear people like Joe Rogan. Bring him up all the time. Fucking love Joe Rogan. He's one of my heroes. But they recently did a thing Sober October, and he gave up pot for the month of October, and. Hearing him talk about it was really interesting because he's like, yeah, like near the midway through, near the end, he's like, I for sure noticed some things that I'm missing or whatever, but I'm not as affected as I thought I was gonna be initially.
Yeah.
I think the biggest change was he started having really vivid dreams. And apparently that's a common thing when you quit pot. Very vivid dreams, and other than that, he's like, yeah, like I noticed something like not that he was like snappy, but he's like, I noticed I was like a little bit more high strung and not as compassionate. He's like, the big thing for him with pot that he described was it makes him feel more relaxed for sure, which isn't the case for a lot. Some people don't feel relaxed at all; they feel very anxious, right? So. It had him be more relaxed, and him be more compassionate and loving and caring, and like those are common benefits that people experience, and I think it just has to do with your brain chemistry and like some people when they take Adderall or Ritalin, like they focus in and it helps them work. Some people it's like just like cocaine, they just get high, right? It's all just dependent on your brain chemistry, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, and I think pot is one of those things because it has such a broad scope of benefits for different people. It's just about like allowing it to be a free substance that it's like a substance that anyone can use, and like if they find benefit in it for
good, if
sleep
not.
or relaxation or whatever, great. And if not, it's just like a party drug, whatever. Like I hate saying party drug.
We gotta have party drugs, baby.
You immediately think cocaine and ecstasy and shit, but.
MDMA.
I mean, I'm also of the opinion, though, like, again, like, I know we're probably close to time, but I don't want to get into it too much, but I'm also of the opinion, like, and this is like the kind of the libertarian sort of parts of me showing, but it's like, I'm a fucking adult. We are adults, sovereign individuals. We should get to fucking choose what we put into our bodies and what we don't. And it's a little bit different, I will admit, in a country with socialized medicine, where what I put in my body can put a burden on
the taxpayer.
And so I admit that there's some shit that needs to maybe get figured out there, but I think overall it should be not how do we legislate the morality of these substances, but how do we provide freedom without creating a large risk. And I think, again, like Dr. Carl Hart, someone who's been studying addictions and drugs his entire career, and he's like, the most dangerous thing about even like the worst drugs, the most dangerous thing about them is the adulterants, the things that they get cut with, is the most dangerous thing. And how do you get rid of those things? You legalize and you regulate that so it doesn't have any of the adulterants in it.
Right. Oh, I
so
totally
it's an interesting point, and I mean that we could probably delve into that on its whole topic on its own. But I urge anyone who's interested in that topic to look up Dr. Carl Hart. He's got a website. I think if you Google him, it'll pop up. He's got books. He's appeared on on the O'Reilly Show. He's appeared on Joe Rogan a couple times. If you're interested in that topic, because there's no way, even if we did it a full hour, I would be able to do it justice. Highly recommend listening to those podcasts and then reading some of his material, because it's a very different perspective than we often are taught and we learn about in the system, in the school system. And I think it's a very important one to have, just because he's approaching it from a very educated and level-headed place.
Okay.
And not just like, drugs are always bad and we should prevent kids from doing drugs. It's like, well, here are the real facts about drugs. Make your own choices, you know?
Yeah, and I can totally respect that. I think that fear-mongering regarding these kinds of situations doesn't benefit anybody. Yeah. But if you present everybody with the real facts, not a bunch of fucking horse manure, and like Monster Energy, the T is the devil, and the H is the devil, the M is the three sins of God to the man. Anyway, that's a different story. Thanks, everyone, so much for tuning in today.
This is another edition of the Sans Frans podcast. Hopefully we'll have some more. Maybe not, but maybe. Well, we don't know.
We don't know. And we might even jump into another one in a bit.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. As always, I'm your host, what'd you say, Green?
The Green Armadillo.
The Green Armadillo.
I'm just a Green Armadillo.
I'm a host of Green Armadillo.
Good night, everybody. See you in the morning.
See you in the morning.